Um, well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ben Bauert, founder and CEO at Facilitate, based out of Perth, Australia.
Guys, my name's Philipp. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Facilitate. Really excited to be bringing you this webinar today. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, we know it'll be really packed with a huge amount of insights and guidance for those of you currently on the journey to XR adoption and scaling, and those of you who are, really just preparing to enter into this area with your learning and training programs. So just a bit of context, around the importance of a webinar such as this today. 2025 is already shaping up to be a very, very interesting year for immersive technologies. We've witnessed Google announcing Android XR, and really just recently in the last few days, announced they're purchasing some of HTC's Vive's XR talent and IP. And from a broader perspective, in terms of shifts and trends, we're starting to see XR really increasingly being normalized as a way to bring higher engagement, standardization, and scalability for learners in a whole variety of sectors. So, at Facilitate, we're incredibly excited about what this year brings and how it will impact workplace training. So just a 20-second, as to who Facilitate is. So we're an Australian-based company, essentially an immersive training authoring platform built for learning designers and training professionals to easily and quickly create and iterate on their own immersive training content. So our mission is to improve the lives of more than 1 billion people through better learning experiences, and we're setting about trying to achieve that by lowering the barriers for who can become creators in this space, and democratizing that creation process, really. So yeah, that's enough about us. Before we dive into today's conversation, let me introduce our distinguished guest, Andy Trainor. Andy's the former Vice President and Chief Learning Officer at Walmart, where he led transformative learning initiatives for one of the world's largest workforces, if not the largest. So with extensive experience in implementing innovative training solutions, Andy was a driving force behind Walmart's adoption of XR technology to enhance employee development at scale. And I think that they actually reached a level of scale that hasn't been met since. So it really is an amazing achievement. His leadership has earned him recognition as a pioneer in leveraging immersive technologies to create impactful, accessible, and scalable learning experiences. So he's here today to share invaluable insights from his journey and the lessons he's learned along the way. So, Andy, welcome to the webinar today. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights and guidance with everyone. We really appreciate it. I guess, yeah, I'd love to kick the session off with the question. Yeah, can you share a little bit about your journey and how you ended up really focusing on, well, having a big part of your career focused on XR training in enterprise environments?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you having me here and excited to talk more about this cool technology. So, yeah, so it was really kind of actually by accident that we found it. We were building out the Walmart academies at the time. This was probably 7, 8 years ago. And we needed a way to train 1.5 million people effectively on how to do their job. And we knew the traditional methods that we'd been using for years just weren't as effective, as efficient, and weren't as scalable as we needed. When you got to train 1.5 million people across 200 locations, it's really hard to maintain consistency and accuracy in the training. So we were doing a lot of research on what we could do differently, and at the same time be more efficient and more effective. And we were visiting a local university and ran across it was a college, American college football. The quarterback was actually in this room running around the room with nothing else in there but something on his head and this big long cord going up to the ceiling. And so you naturally just have to stop and watch. And for about 20 minutes, he's running around, acting like he's throwing a ball, dodging things. And so when he got done, we started talking to him, like, you know, what the heck are you doing? And he was actually learning defensive and offensive plays through virtual reality for the next week's games. And he was completely covered in sweat, totally out of breath, and was telling us that, look, when I do it through VR, when I see it on the field, I feel like I've already seen it and already done it. And I feel like I'm really going to get hit when I've got the headset on, so I have to move. And so when I see these plays in the game, it feels like I've already seen it. And so I just instinctively know what to do. So that was really intriguing for us. And so we went back and said, hey, what if we tried to do this for training? At the time, nobody really was doing it for training at all. This was even before there were non-tethered headsets yet. So this was pre-Oculus Go. So we bought about 200 headsets, tethered ones, and tested them out in our training facilities to see if it would work. And immediately we knew that this was something that would be game changing from a associate perspective, from a training perspective. It was faster, it was more effective, and it just had a cool factor to it. And so as we continued to talk, the Oculus Go came out, and then we kind of scaled it from there. And within 2 years of seeing this at the university, we had 17,000 headsets in 5,000 locations, training about 1 million people a quarter to it. So really fast, and really believed in it.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal rate of adoption, really, when you think about it, going from you know, no use of the technology within that period of time for that much. Really curious to understand, were there specific training challenges that really, you know, were driving the business case internally to kind of get up and running?
Yeah, I think there's a couple for sure. I think the number one was, like I mentioned, we were building these training locations to teach people how to do their job. And we wanted to make sure that everyone did the job the same, because it's very important from a customer impact and customer service perspective. You want everyone treated the same no matter where you go in a Walmart. And that's really hard to do when we had 3,000 facilitators that were teaching these 1.5 million associates. It's really hard to get 3,000 people to say the same thing every time over and over. And when you update the content, when you change the way someone should react or what they should do, it's really hard to get everybody to get that message. You're happy with 80%. That means 20% are still doing it wrong. So that was a big one, was how do we get more consistent with our training and make sure that the same thing is trained the exact same way every single time. And then it was just time savings. So, you know, every minute an employee is not on the floor is lost productivity time. And so training is super important, but the efficient training really needs to be the focus. And our traditional methods of, whether it's sitting in front of a computer or you know, in front of, you know, a teacher that was reading a PowerPoint presentation, it just takes a lot of time. So we were looking for a way for it to be more efficient. And then lastly was, how do we make training desirable?
I was just going to say, it's got to be fun, right?
Right. No one wants to do training, or if they do, it's not because they want to do the training, it's because they want to just get off the floor and not be doing any work. So how do we change the perception of training? And so that was what drove us looking for new technology, was those three things.
Okay, that's really
fantastic.
I guess, I mean, one question that we often get asked, you know, is those who are already involved in the training process, so live facilitators, for example, or training creators. Did you find, you know, were there any challenges in getting them across the board with the new technology as well? Or what are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple things that come to mind immediately. Number one, the facilitators were afraid this was going to take their job. That the teachers don't have anything to teach because the technology is going to do it. And that is not the case. Most of the time, virtual reality or XR is the practical application and training of the training you previously got. So
Yeah.
it's sometimes you can use VR completely separate and not have a facilitator or training. But typically what we would do is the trainer or the facilitator would actually teach a topic, and then in virtual reality, this employee would actually do it in practice.
Yeah.
So that's really it was kind of added on to the training. It shortened how long the classroom needed to be, and they spent more time in the virtual reality. But the reason that's so effective is virtual reality, your brain thinks it's real after 30 seconds. And that's really the key, is your brain believes, you know, it's not real when you put it on, but after 30 seconds, your brain's telling you this is a real experience. And so it becomes a memory, and memories become habits, and habits become instinct. And so what we were seeing was when you did something in virtual reality, when it happened in real life, you instinctively knew what to do because your brain has this memory that you've already done it. And that's what made it so effective. So one was convincing the facilitators that, look, this isn't to replace you. This is actually to help you, give you a tool to practice what you teach in a safe environment where no one gets hurt. You can't insult anybody. You can't break anything. You can't hurt yourself or others. So it's that. The other was, it was a brand new technology that was perceived to be a brand new technology that not many of our employees had had interaction with before or exposure to. And so there was a lot of fear of, you know, I don't know how to use it. So when someone's scared of technology, they immediately start coming up with excuses why they don't want to use it or don't need to use it. I get motion sick. I don't want something on my face. And most of what we found was just around the fear of, I've never used it. I don't know how. I don't want to look silly. So we just started from ground zero and assumed no one had ever seen it at all, and trained everybody like they'd never heard or seen of a virtual reality headset before, regardless of whether they had or not. And what we learned was very few people got motion sick, because if the content is good, you don't need
That's
to,
right.
especially now with the advance in 6 degrees of freedom versus 3. 3 degrees of freedom, it was a little bit harder because you moved, the environment moved around you, and you were
That's right.
still. Now with 6 degrees of freedom, because you can move in the environment, it's even better. And I would say out of the 1.5 million people we were training, less than 100 said they got motion sick and couldn't do it.
Wow.
So it's a really low number if you get good content. So that was probably the two biggest hurdles outside of getting approval in the beginning. But once we had it and we're ready to scale, that was the two big hurdles for us.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. It's fascinating. Do you mind just giving a 20-second sort of overview of, you know, what was that introduction to VR kind of experience like? So if you were a Walmart employee and this is your first time, like, yeah, what were you guys providing that would ease that journey for them?
Yeah, we did a couple of things. So, you know, obviously you have to kind of lock it down. So only the content we wanted them to see, they could see on it. Right. That was a big lesson. Back then, there wasn't a lot of platforms to help you control what you could see. And so we had to figure that out. But I think it was, we put some kind of game similar to, it wasn't exactly, but something similar to oh gosh, I lost the name of it. But basically where you go up in a skyscraper and you have to walk across a
Richie's Plank
board.
experience.
Plank experience.
There you go, plank experience. Similar to Richie's Plank. That's it.
Yeah.
Wasn't that one, but something just to teach them that, hey, this is real, but it's not real. And this is why it's effective. And then we just had a tutorial on, okay, let's do certain things and show you how to do stuff. And we could cast it to TVs. And so while one person was in it, the rest of the class could see it. And then they just took turns. And then we had, I think the first module we ever used for training was the wet wall in a grocery store, which the wet wall is basically where all the leafy green vegetables are. It's the highest turnover, highest throwaway area of a grocery store.
Yeah.
Very complicated to learn, humidity levers, moisture content, all the equipment that has the way it's stacked. And so we use that as our kind of our test to see if it would work. And so everybody got to go through that one. So it was really kind of get them excited about it, that and understanding how it feels like a real experience. Give them a full tutorial on to play around with it and see how it works, and then give them a real life what they do every day example to show what the training is.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Were there any sort of any common themes amongst the types of training use cases that you found that were particularly successful, and you know, and then those that weren't as well? You know, any particular sort of underlying reasons why, you know, the VR was particularly uniquely powerful for those that, yeah.
Yeah, we learned a ton in the beginning. You know, it took a while to get the leaders to agree to let us test it. But once and the way we got them to agree was we put them through it. There's no substitution for actually experiencing it headset on.
That's right.
And once they did, they got it. And the problem was once they got it, they wanted it for everything. And it is not for everything. And so we built so many modules that we never used because it just didn't make sense. And things like we built one on how to stock a shelf. Well, VR is great for things that aren't safe. You know, something you want to fail in a safe environment, you can't or don't want to recreate in the real world. You don't want to interfere with customers. Well, stocking a shelf, you do that every day, all day, real life on a sales floor, and you're not getting in anybody's way. So there was no point to it. So we started to learn that, look, it's really, where do you need to fail in a safe way? What are situations that we can't or don't want to recreate in a store or real world environment that we can put you into? And that was really kind of our guiding principle was, all right, what are things like that? And so probably the most effective one that we did, and really made the scaling of it go even faster was active shooter. And it's probably the best and worst use case that we have, to be honest. When it's unfortunate we have to do it, and we still do. 6 years later, we still have to worry about it. But basically, we had training already. It was e-learning where you sat in front of a computer and you clicked through, and it was compliant. Covered all the things we needed to cover, and we were legally covered and actually went a little bit above and beyond. But it wasn't effective. We knew with e-learning, there's not a high retention from it. They don't pay attention for the most part. They're distracted. So that's where we decided, all right, well, what if we built a virtual reality module on how to navigate an active shooter situation? So we closed the store down overnight and we filmed a real active shooter situation. Now this was back, golly, probably 6 years ago. So it was still 3 degrees of freedom. So we used 60-degree video versus CG. And there was no blood or guts. You didn't see any violence, but you did see the gun. You heard the shots. You saw the shooter, and you had to decide throughout this module what to do each step of the way.
So you had a branching logic structure.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. And so, unbelievably effective, but also unbelievably scary. Because remember, your brain thinks it's real after 30 seconds.
That's right.
So you hear the shots, you see the shooter. We had people jumping around and trying to run. And this was really a big changing point for the way we trained at Walmart. So previously, you were always really careful not to try to upset anyone in the training. And when I say upset, that we were getting a lot of feedback that this was triggering past emotions from some of our employees. And we talked a lot about it. And where I landed was the answer is yes, it is. And would you rather it happen in a training environment where they can take the headset off and you can talk to them and calm them down and it's not real? versus they're in a store and someone's pointing a gun at them, and this is the first time they've had to deal with that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And so yes, it's traumatic, and yes, it might be triggering, but unfortunately, yes, it also might happen in one of our stores, and we want you to be prepared for it. And and we want you to experience as close to what would happen as you can before it does. So you can make an educated decision, is this the job for you or not? Because shouldn't happen, but it might. So we scaled that out, and we were putting 1 million people a quarter through this training.
Wow.
It was mandatory. The first time you took the training, you had a facilitator with you, and kind of walked you through what to do, and then afterwards kind of talked about what you saw, what you felt, what you thought, and kind of navigate the situation. But after that, you had to retake it once a quarter, and then we refreshed it every year. And so probably about a year later, after we'd rolled that out, there was a terrible situation in El Paso, Texas, where a shooter came into a store and killed 23 people. And so we went back to try to understand what happened and why. And in that process, we learned there was over 2,000 people in the store at the time the shooter entered the store.
Wow.
And so the shooter comes in. Unfortunately, the 23 people ran to the front of the store into a bank. There was no exit out of the store through the bank for safety reasons from a robbery perspective. And they just got trapped, unfortunately. But the shooter left the bank, walked the store for probably 3 to 5 minutes, didn't kill himself, didn't run out of bullets, didn't leave. The police came and arrested him eventually, but walked the aisles and there was nobody there. And so when we started trying to understand and talk to the associates, how did you get 2,000 people out of that store in 3 minutes? Like, how is that possible? Every single associate said, because I did the VR training, I knew instinctively what to do. I didn't have to think about what I read, what I watched, what I listened to. It just felt like I just knew what to do instinctively. And they got everybody out, most everybody out.
Wow.
So that's when we knew that it was game changing, that if someone can remember what to do in such a traumatic situation that everyone thinks will never happen to them, imagine what it can do for leadership or customer service or technical
100%.
skills. So that was really the game changer for us of, wow, it can save people's lives and enhance things beyond their beliefs. So
wow, a fantastic example. Well, not, but from a training perspective, very powerful. But
I think for me that it really highlights, just the unique nature of this technology, and as you're saying, the type of experience it actually can embody in people that go through it. Like one question that we often get, clearly a lot of organizations, they're looking at this technology thinking, well, what's the potential ROI and how do we build up the business case for it? Especially if they've never done it before, they don't have, that experience of understanding, what its potential is. What advice have you got for organizations that are there? Often we come across, someone in the training or learning department that really is a champion for change and a new way of bringing training about. Do you have advice for those types of people who really they're fighting business as usual as the blocker to getting going?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the number one advice is stay diligent. Don't take no for an answer. It is extra work, right? Like for us, when we were doing it, we still had to train all the associates the old way while we were trying to figure out the new way. So all the stuff that I hired them to do still had to be done, plus figure this out, which was a monumental task because there's just so much work to get it figured out. So one, you have to be super passionate and diligent. I used to tell my team all the time, don't ask if we can do it, ask how we can do it. And that just changes the conversation. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking you to help me figure out how to do it so I don't do it wrong. I think that's one is just know it's going to be hard. but anything worth doing is hard. And so
Sure.
that's one. I think two, you're going to have lots of pushback from your finance folks, from your operations folks. So you just have to, from your your IT folks, from your security folks, like every area of the company is going to have pushback and concerns about it. And so you have to understand before you talk to them what their concerns will be and how this will solve or fix a problem that they already have. I think that's the big key is we understood that what the problems that we were trying to solve related to training effectiveness, efficiency, and so we used that as a way to help get people on board. So you think about operations, they were struggling with, throwing away too much produce. So how do we help figure that out? And that we picked a very tangible, measurable target to go after first. So we piloted something. A lot of people wanted to go to the soft skill side, which is great for.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to measure.
Hard to measure, isn't it? Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So we picked something that was very easy to track and to show the benefit. So that's number one. I think, number two is your finance team is going to have a really hard time with it's a headset. And after 3 years, 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to replace it because the technology is moving that fast. And they don't want to re-spend the capital every 3 to 5 years. So, now there's ways where you can, just like your phone can kind of rent to own hardware.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you can replace it after 3 years without spending capital. It becomes an OPEX. So that makes it a lot more feasible for businesses. Now you've got a way to repeat it. And then I think, from a security perspective, you just got to work with them and find the right partners that the data is safe, that they don't keep it. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, whether you stay inside the network or you have it outside and feed it in. So you just have to really think through all the big hurdles, and the hurdles are justified.
Of
But
course.
they're overcomable. And so you
That's right.
got to be diligent, and you got to don't get discouraged and keep pushing.
Yeah. I think that's very solid advice. So yeah, I guess changing track a little bit, you would have seen a lot of change in the XR training landscape over the past few years. What trends or innovations are you seeing evolving that you're most excited about?
Yeah, I think number one, the hardware is getting better, lighter, more powerful. So that's exciting. And so, I mean, it's frustrating when you just bought it and the new one comes right back out. But I think hardware will continue to evolve, and where there won't be this AR and VR will all be one headset, and you'll have a pair of glasses that do it. So I think the hardware advances are amazing, and it'll just continue to get better and better. AI is a game changer. It is for everything. But there's ways now. We were building modules. Typically, when you build a virtual reality training, when you call it branching. And basically, if you say yes, you pre-record this happens. If you say no, you pre-record this happens. And you can do that multiple times. But if you take the same module 3 or 4 times, it's the same over and over. And then you have to replace it. Well, with AI getting better and better, you don't have to pre-record branching. You can do the branching based on the response or the tone or the words or the body language. And so now every time you take it, it's a completely different module, which now means your training modules last infinitely longer than they were before. And so that cuts down a lot on your maintenance cost and your ability to scale it and use it consistently. And then, I think just the tech ability of it, like I think I mentioned with the headsets, but it's going to become part of it. And so just watching more and more companies use it, I think it's going to be interesting. I think the last one would probably be the content development piece. So and this is exactly what you guys do, but when we started building content, It's very expensive. Content's very expensive the traditional way. And so
Mm.
we were building, we probably had, I don't know, 60, 70 modules built up. And pretty soon what was happening was our budget to maintain those modules became bigger
Mhm.
than our budget to create new ones. Because inevitably every
Wow.
year you're going to change a logo. You're going to change the way you
Mhm.
want someone to respond. You're going to change a process in one of
Mm,
your stores or warehouses or wherever it may be. And you got to go back and rebuild that module and
Mhm.
update it. Or the technology moves up, and so now you've got to refilm it or redo it because you didn't do it in the right quality or whatever it may be.
Mm.
And
yeah.
so we were spending more money on maintaining existing than we were on building new. And that's just a death cycle because every
Mm.
time I created a new one, it meant was less opportunity for create new ones next year because I had to maintain
Mhm.
that one. And so with these new authoring tools, that takes that barrier completely away to scaling because really once you have a headset, you can put as much through it as you want to, as many people as
Mm.
you want to through it. But the limit was how much can you afford to build once you had the
Yeah.
Mhm.
hardware.
Yeah.
And now with these authoring tools, specifically y'all's, um, that takes that away. You can build as much as you want, as easy as you want, as
Mm,
fast as you want. And so it's a game changer for the scalability and usage of it.
Mm.
yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic to hear you say that, and really that has been our sort of ethos, since day one. Most large organizations have got learning designers and training creators that are building things like e-learning content, doing live facilitation, and we've always thought, well, why should XR be any different? They should be
Mm.
able to create this type of content and really have a lot more creative control within the organization itself. Um,
Mm.
are there any particular factors that you think organizations should consider, when they're looking at XR content creation, tools and platforms?
Yeah, I think number one, it needs to be open and work anywhere.
Hmm.
You got to be really
Mhm.
careful. There are several tools out there that only work on certain platforms, and that's not what you want. You need the
Mhm.
ability that whatever content you build, you own,
Mm.
and you as the customer own it, and you can run it on any platform, even if it's homegrown that you want. So just
Mm,
make sure that whatever file type is created can be used anywhere for anything. I think the
Mm.
other is it allows you the ability to do different types of content. So
mhm,
there's
Mhm.
there's 360, there's all the different types, and so it's really important that you can choose different things for different scenarios and different modalities for different use cases because
yeah.
you'll be
Mm.
surprised how much when you can't do that, how much you wish you could. Um,
Mhm.
and then I think just the ease of use, right? Like, it's really hard to find um, programmers that understand the language. Um, and then add to that, they also need to understand how to build learning content. And
Mm.
those two skill sets are typically polar opposite, right?
That's
You've got
right. Yeah.
very technical and very
Mm.
artsy. And finding
Mm.
a technical artsy person, there's not a lot of them. And so
Yeah.
being able
Mm.
to anyone being able to use it, obviously you need technical people to help you kind of keep it going, but
Sure.
a tool that any content or learning developer can build content just like they build lesson plans for anything else, that's really
Mm,
important.
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Um, I guess just looking at the time, we've probably got a couple more questions that sort of spring to mind, but a lot of organizations, they're contemplating jumping into this technology. If you were in the shoes of someone who was in that position, what would be your first step to get started tomorrow?
Yeah, number one, put your leaders through it. Like
Hmm.
get some headset, get the plank experience, put them through it. Like
Mm.
they you can talk to them and you can have PowerPoints and charts and stats all you want,
Mm.
but until they
Mm,
literally are standing on a plank at the top of a skyscraper and are scared they're going to fall off, they won't understand. So that's number
Mm.
one is nothing takes the place of experiencing it. And so you got to get them in it. You got to get them to experience it. Secondly, I think is find a problem that everyone agrees is a problem that you want to try to solve. And make it tangible, make it something that you can track and report and compare so you can show a true ROI, because there is. It's really easy to, like I said earlier, it's really easy to start with the leadership skills and soft skills, whether it's conflict resolution or DEI. All those are great, but you can't prove an ROI, a definitive ROI for it. It's very hard to prove what someone did in a situation, saved money or cost money. But there's lots of things, like whether it's turnover, whether it's engagement, whether there's a productivity play, whether it's how long it takes someone to learn a task or a process with VR versus without, but be really clear on what that single problem is. Make sure everybody that's a decision maker agrees that's a problem, because the last thing you want to do when you're going in to get approval to scale it is everyone not agree that the problem you solved was a problem in the first place. And then you're fighting over the problem, not over the solution to the problem. I think those two, and then you're going to have to learn to say, once you get past that, you're going to have to learn to say no, because everybody's going to want it for everything. So you got to be really selective. And then when you start to scale it, that is going to be unbelievably hard. So just know that how you get headsets to certain people, how they set them up, where are they going to do the training, how are they going to do the training, who's going to be responsible for cleaning the headset or maintaining it, how do you make sure they stay charged, all of those things. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And just know that anytime you're rolling out a new technology, the scaling of it is just painful. But just start small and grow as you go. And so we were fortunate. We had 200 training locations that we'd already built a few years before. And so we used those as our distribution points. And so we shipped the headsets for the 5,000 locations to 200 locations. Those 200 each had a core responsibility of stores, and they went and trained each individual store on how to use it. And so just figure out what that model looks like for you, and start small and start slow, and you'll get there.
Fantastic.
I think that is fantastic advice. Often when we talk to a new customer, and then they're full of ideas, they're throwing 50 things out at once, and they're wanting to get going on all of them at the same time, we usually say, come on, put the brakes on. Let's keep it narrow at first, just prove it works, work out your deployment model, and from there it'll be clear how best to scale.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. I think we're almost out of time. We just had one final question, Andy. It's sort of pulling out your crystal ball based off your experience, and if you could look forward, say 5 years, what role do you think XR technology likely to take within learning and development in enterprise?
Yeah, I think it has to become an integral part of it. I would say everyone should be, well, in 5 years, everyone should be doing it. Like, you can get headsets now for $200-300. So the cost of the headsets isn't a problem anymore. With content, these self-authoring tools, obviously you're still going to have highly technical content you may want someone to build, if it's taking apart a full engine or a nuclear reactor or whatever. There's always going to be that you want someone to build it, but most of the content you'll be able to do yourself. I think VR headsets, AR, XR technology is going to be even more common in 5 years. Good Lord, I can't imagine. Meta's come out now with these glasses, these smart glasses that they're not AR yet, but I think the next version will be. And so going to get the form factor is going to get more comfortable, more smaller, and more multi-use. And look, this generation, technology is what they use. They don't know what library cards are or encyclopedias are. everything is on their phone or their computer. And so technology is an integral part of how they learn and how they grow up and how they experience new things. And so thinking that we can keep doing training on a PowerPoint presentation, it's just not going to be effective. And so those that don't do it, you're just not going to keep, one, you're not going to keep your employees because they don't know what to do, but no one's going to want to go work somewhere that's not keeping pace with the technology. So I think it's a huge part. All the things that were barriers for us early on are getting removed. Like the cost of headsets quadruple what it is now. There was no way to build our own content. So all of those are the two main things. Those are now out of the way. So I would say it has to become an integral part of the way you train your people, or your people will go somewhere where it is.
Good point.
That's a very good point. We're even starting to see the same content that organizations are creating for training being used in the recruitment process as a means to drive interest from candidates. It's fascinating where it's all heading. So I think with that we've run out of time. But Andy, thank you so much for your time, your insights. I think there's so much to take away from everything you've just said. And I guess if people would like to get in contact with you, what's the best way to actually go about?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help answer questions, anything anybody needs. As you can see, I'm super passionate about this topic. So any advice or support someone needs, just let me know through LinkedIn.
Yeah, great.
Fantastic. Excellent.
And if people have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact Andy. If you're interested in learning more about Facilitate, please, we're on LinkedIn as well, or just head to our website, facilitate.tech. But with that, again, thank you very much, Andy, and thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully it was full of wisdom and guidance to enable you to get into the XR space and take your journey and your training content to the next level. So with that, thanks everyone. We'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
See ya.